A lot of the people that I deal with day in, day out are what we call either movers or makers. So the movers are the people who actually start things happening, right? So they're the visionaries or the people inside an organization who realize things could be better, could be changed. And these folks bring incredible energy to the table and usually want to drive things forward. And the makers are the folks who build things. And what we often hear from the people who are starting new initiatives is, especially in large organizations, and contact centers by their nature are large organizations. I mean, even if it's 50 agents, which is pretty small for us, so that's still a lot of people, right? So, and they probably have three or four people doing processes in the background, several people taking care of systems, a whole lot of operations staff, management layers. And then if you go to 1,000 agents, obviously that pyramid increases dramatically. And they deal with a whole load of almost every other part of the business, right? They dip into data that's to do with CRM that might be in the sales organization. And there's dozens and dozens of systems that they use. So they also deal with IT very heavily. So if you're one of these movers and you're trying to make things happen, then you come up against loads of barriers, right? So you're trying to maybe, especially if you come in new, right? You come in, you're a new CS director or head of customer experience or whatever it might be, then you're going to have these initiatives you want to start, but you've got to get over the barriers of the people who are there for longer and know lots of things, which you need to know. I mean, it's valuable information, but you also have to be able to jump over or move around things that are getting away in the initiatives that you're trying to present to management, right, to the higher level management, and get budget for. And actually, I mean, your problem, I guess, and this is the problem I used to have when I was in the same role, is you got to make that work, right? You've got to make a success out of the project because your own personal aims inside that business and in your career in general depend on it, right? So you don't want to have failed projects. Having one failed project is okay if you're betting on three right at the same time, then two are good. But you certainly can't have a string of failed projects, and that's what you sometimes face in a complex space like the contact center. What I've seen is that the organizations, or the movers, particularly the people who do this best, they have a few key things in their mind, especially, and I'm thinking now in the last like few years, right now in this moment we're in, not using previous technologies and previous innovation cycles. But in this moment, what I'm seeing in the last few years, that the mega success in changing customer experiences and customer service and sales organizations at scale is coming from people who think in a particular way. They think algorithms, MVPs, and no code. So let me explain. So most people I'm talking to here have probably used Uber or Gorillas, right, or something like that, or a service like that, a service with a huge wow impact in the customer experience, right? Very few people say, oh yeah, I didn't like that first time I got an Uber car. On the app, everything just happens pretty automatically. You know what car is coming, the car is identified for you, you know you've got the right car, it tells you the number plate and type of car. The whole thing, usually the matching of you to a car, unless you hit like a terrible P time or something like that, it usually happens incredibly quickly. If you order on Gorillas or a similar like super fast home delivery service, if you read it in the papers, you'll know that they start doing your order from the moment you open the app, because they have an algorithm that's actually predicting what you're going to order, right? Now, that's the big difference between a wow CX, where your customers are thrilled, and a kind of a meh, CX that's not really going anywhere, is thinking algorithmically. And it's a mistake to think that only these big guys with 1,000 developers or 200 developers or whatever they have can do that. It's just not true. Which brings us to the third point I mentioned, which is the no code. Is if you're thinking algorithmically, and what that means is every interaction that begins and every data flow associated with it, you think of it as an algorithm, not as something that goes through your Salesforce or your Zendesk or goes through your call ACD system and then into your Zen. You don't think about it in boxes. You think of it as one algorithm, and its goal is to deliver amazing customer experiences and the business goals, which don't always match up, right? So you may have a trade-off. You may have a business goal that means you make some people wait longer because they're not as important. That's necessary. But you're trying to match both things up, and that's your kind of result function, is maximizing those two together, depending on what the goals of the business are. And the thing is an algorithm. Right? Then the second thing is no code, is if you're going to build, you can't build algorithms like Uber because you don't have as much money as them, right? Hardly anybody has as much capital as they have available. Or Netflix is the same, right? They're building algorithms all the time. But you can with no code, right? So if you're thinking in no code base, you think, I don't need to apply a load of developers and DevOps people who are the most expensive resources in the whole economy, anyways. I don't need that. I need my process folks to be able to build this without involving dev and DevOps and IT. Which means that you can achieve a great deal more. Now you're finding ways to move quickly. And that brings me to what I had as point number 2, which is MVP. MVP comes from product development, minimal viable product. And that's what means you spot the top 3 things you want to do, take even the top one of those, build how to do it in 2 weeks. Don't start a huge project bringing in half the company into what you want to do. Make it work and then present that to your management. Right? So get the go ahead for the MVP, which is very easy to do. Present that to the stakeholders, and then you're presenting results, and then you're figuring out after 2 weeks, how do we go from here in 6 weeks to this being live? Or maybe it takes you 12 weeks or longer if you're in a huge enterprise organization. But the point is, in either case, you've got an outcome. You've proven that you can move the dial on the CX experience, on the experience plus on the business outcomes. You join those 3 together, and I think that's a recipe for really moving you to a new space in your management of CX.